Our unwillingness to leave the comfort of our sanctuary means that even our activity becomes inwardly focused and therefore lacks real productivity. John Wimber rightly said, "Many times people who attend church can become more focused on what's happening in church than the reason behind why the church exists. The church is not the building, it's the people. It's not just the gathering, it's also the scattering." We can become consumed with activities that perpetuate the church machinery but don't ever get around to the reason for the church's existence. It's like a farmer who is constantly fixing and polishing his tractor in the barn but who never actually gets around to ploughing a field with it. He's busy all right, but he's lost sight of what the tractor is for, and there are no crops to show for all his effort. An inwardly focused church is actually rarely short of things to do. Should you wish to, get involved. Our insular services, events and conferences, after all, need band rehearsals and meetings. We need car park attendants and a welcoming team and stewards and sound engineers. And we need to print t-shirts and order name tags and lanyards for the ushers. There's a creche rota and a Sunday school rota, a rota for floral displays. We organise lunches, coffee mornings, arts and crafts fairs, bake sales and fellowship weekends away. There are building fundraisers, church picnics and barbecues, and there's no shortage of administration for all this, and no lack of emails to write or people to call. All these things and more create a great feeling of busyness, bustle and activity, but in the end analysis all we're really doing is perpetuating the church machinery so that the church machinery can be perpetuated. We're still not actually ploughing or planting or harvesting, and there are few crops to show for all the effort. We're still behind the four walls of the barn. We're still not fulfilling the Great Commission. Oswald J. Smith said, "Oh my friends, we are loaded with countless church activities, while the real work of the church, that of evangelizing and winning the lost, is almost entirely neglected." I've talked to many people who have delved into this kind of church involvement, joining rotas and loading themselves with the numerous church programs that are available. Often they report that they dread Sundays because it's one of the busiest and most stressful days of the week. No longer is it a time for refreshment and encouragement with other believers as it was in the early church. They reach Sunday evenings exhausted and longing for another day in which to recover before starting work the next morning. A lot of the stress has come about because the church has moved from an organic to organizational form. The early church was marked by simplicity, informality, being Holy Spirit-led, spontaneity, authenticity and honesty. Today it's marked by formality, programs, rotas, staged events and shows. In economic terms, this turning of church into an organization or institution has made it a high input, low output system. In other words, our events, programs and buildings are very resource hungry and require a lot of time, organizational talent, administration and money, which can be quite exhausting, but there's very little discernible benefit from all this activity coming out the other side in the way of discipleship. That is to say, changed lives. Listen to this parable. It may well describe our church experience.
The fishermen were surrounded by streams and lakes full of hungry fish. They met regularly to discuss the call to fish, the abundance of fish, and the thrill of catching fish. They got excited about fishing. Someone suggested that they needed a philosophy of fishing, so they carefully defined and redefined fishing. They also developed fishing strategies and tactics. They began research studies and attended conferences on fishing. Some traveled to faraway places to study different kinds of fish with different habits. A few even got doctorates in fishology. But no one had yet gone fishing. So a committee was formed to send out fishermen. As prospective fishing places outnumbered fishermen, the committee needed to determine priorities. A priority list of fishing places was posted on bulletin boards in all the fellowship halls, but still no one was fishing. A survey was launched to find out why. Most didn't answer the survey, but from those who did, it was discovered that some felt called to study fish, a few to furnish fishing equipment, and several to go around encouraging the fishermen. With so many important meetings, conferences, and seminars, they just simply didn't have time to fish. Now, Jake was a newcomer to the Fishermen's Fellowship. After one stirring meeting of the fellowship, he went fishing and caught a large fish. At the next meeting, he told his story and was honored for his catch. He was told that he had a special gift of fishing. He was then scheduled to speak at all the fellowship chapters and tell everyone how he did it. With all the speaking invitations and his election to the board of directors, Jake no longer had time to go fishing. But soon he began to feel restless and empty. He longed to feel the tug on the line once again. So he canceled the speaking, he resigned from the board, and he said to a friend, "Hey, let's go fishing." That's exactly what the two of them did. And lo and behold, they caught fish. The members of the Fishermen's Fellowship were many. The fish were plentiful, but the fishermen were few.
This parable highlights the fact that we are often full of activity but very little productivity. We're fishers who just don't fish. In fact, quite often all of these activities and programs that we initiate are just avoidance tactics. We don't want to do the simple but scary thing that really needs to be done, so instead we talk about it, have meetings about it, plan conferences and seminars about it, sing songs about it, memorize verses about it, devise philosophies about it, create money and time-consuming organizational structures around it, do doctorate studies about it, develop strategies and tactics about it, so that we don't have to get out there and actually do it. In this way we stay busy, but we also retain our valued comfort. Comfortable busyness. We feel that this is the perfect combination. One of the outworkings of comfortable busyness is the way that the church has become accustomed to tackling every issue, not by actually tackling the issue, but by holding an event about tackling the issue, so that we don't actually have to physically go and tackle the issue. We give these events cool titles like this.
We're going to extreme.
Velocity.
Ignite.
Yeah, I'm going to ignite.
The edge.
The dive.
The bridge. The ramp.
Fire.
Courageous. Passion. Echo. Reverb.
Noise.
Velocity. Drive.
Elevate.
Radiate.
722.
635.
419.
Orange.
Blue.
Yellow. Green. Clear. Neon.
Catalyst conference this year.
At these events, we'll be told that we're going to lift his name high, declare his name over the city, sing for his glory, and other such things. We get a venue, a band, a sound system, a lighting rig, a gifted communicator, and we put on a show. We'll put a whole lot of time and effort into making this thing happen, and we'll whip up a great stir over it. Something epic is going to happen. You don't want to miss this. Make sure that you come expectant. God is going to show up. On the night, the crowd will hear a lot about turning our city upside down, seeing lives transformed and impacting our community. Everyone will get pumped up by the hyperbolic proclamations rolling down off the stage. There will be whoops, whistles and loud amens as the crowd are told how big and great and able God is. Many will studiously scribble away on notepads as the key points come up on the big screen. Because we've made a worshipful noise in this place tonight, we feel like we've really achieved something here. We feel like our passionate cries and air punches and songs of ecstasy must have really terrorized Satan. We even talk about having pulled down strongholds and having shaken the heavenlies with our praise. We think the thousands of dollars, euros or pounds that it costs to hire the venue, equipment and staff is money well spent because Satan is now surely scampering off in fear. And then everyone leaves the building telling one another about how challenged or inspired they felt. And nothing is different. Nothing. We go back to our normal lives. We more than likely won't look at those sermon notes again, let alone work out how to apply them to ourselves or our communities. The city wasn't turned upside down. In fact, it goes on just as before, and few lives were really transformed by the whole thing. In time, we'll forget the event even happened. You see, all our words were just empty rhetoric. It was nothing but bluster. We had no intention of doing something to back it all up. The church is so often all bark and no bite, and Satan knows it. We really do believe that God is great and able to do anything, but don't expect us to actually act in faith on that. We really do believe that God could transform lives, but don't expect us to actually talk to broken people about Jesus. We really do leave the event feeling challenged, but don't expect us to actually rise to that challenge. Our Christian lives then can become characterized merely by a series of events, Sunday services, meetings, conferences and other gatherings, where we go in and talk a good game, but where there's little practical application in between. The events are cozy, they're fun, we see our friends there, they're entertaining and often spectacular, they feel good. But I must keep referring to James. When there's no transition to action, they're ultimately a waste of time. We're deceiving ourselves if we go through these motions but never actually apply what we're learning or singing about. Deep down, we know this. Deep down, we start to feel the futility of these events when there's no follow-through, because almost always you'll tend to notice that these events and conferences have very short lifespans. Once the initial novelty wears off and people start to realize that nothing truly productive is coming from them and that they're basically just grander, more expensive versions of what goes on in church every week, interest tends to diminish and attendance figures wane. Most annual Christian conferences and events will run out of steam within 5 to 10 years.